What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here with another Coop Scoops. Last time we talked about how we can bet on the draft using fantasy football by basically looking at teams with certain needs and betting against them taking players at those positions, which happens all the time. How many times does a team say, oh, my team needs a running back, and then they don't take one? Or this is the great landing spot for wide receiver. That team doesn't take a wide receiver. It could easily happen, happens all the time, and it's a huge way for us to get an advantage both in Dynasty by trading for these guys or on sites like Underdog, Best Ball, where you can do drafts now. If you don't have an account, use promo code ALARM. They'll match up to $100. I'm doing drafts all the time. I do it all off season just because it keeps me in touch with ADP and where guys are going, but that's just me. But anyway, so basically what we do is we go on Fantasy, Dynasty, Underdog, and we acquire these guys. And then while we watch the draft, we just root against that team drafting the player. It makes it that much more fun. And we're going to be doing a live stream next Thursday starting at 7 o'clock on Lightning Round, powered by Fantasy Alarm. Me, Kevin Tompkins, Britt Flynn, Gary Haddow, and we're going to have a bunch of guests. Howard Bender's going to join us, John and Pemba. It's going to be a blast. So make sure you join us for that because we can root for these guys together, right? So last week we talked about running backs. I ended up talking about Marlon Mack and the Texans, where I don't know for sure that that team is going to take luxury positions like RB or wide receiver because they're not going to compete yet. So Marlon Mack's a good RB. Why wouldn't we take somebody like Nico Collins, right? They have Brandon Cooks lined up. He's actually pretty good value himself. But Nico Collins, they just drafted. He's a split end. They took him in the 3rd round. And the guy that I think is the best comparable player to Nico Collins is Kenny Golladay, right? Kenny Golladay, 6'4". Nico Collins, 6'4". Kenny Golladay, 218 pounds. Nico Collins, 215 pounds. Kenny Golladay ran a 4.5 flat. Nico Collins ran a 4.5 flat. Kenny Golladay was picked at 96 in the 3rd round. Nico Collins was picked at 89 in the 3rd round. These guys, when you look at size, speed, play style, draft capital, all lines up pretty close. Kenny Golladay was banged up his rookie year, only had about 400 yards or so. Nico Collins went on IR with the shoulder. He had a hip. He had a hamstring. He ended up getting banged up, only had about 400 yards. Look what happened with Kenny Golladay. He came out, blew up for 1,000 yards, couple 1,000-yard seasons, got a big payday. Why can't Nico Collins this year come out and have a pretty good season as the wide receiver 2 on the Texans if they don't take anybody? They just drafted a wide receiver last year. Why would they take another one, right? And Davis Mills is actually surprisingly decent at quarterback. Of the rookie quarterbacks, he had the most spike weeks and arguably was the best ball quarterback last year. So why can't he have a decent year in garbage time throwing the ball in Nico Collins? So that's the kind of thing we're thinking about. People are thinking Texans are taking running back. They're taking wide receiver. They need to build an entire team. So they only have so many picks. They might not take either of those. That's where we get an advantage. Here's another example. Washington Commanders, right? They have Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, but Logan Thomas coming off an ACL. Curtis Samuel we didn't see last year, so he's kind of falling behind the 8 ball. He's going at wide receiver 64. That's pretty deep, right? So you can get him as your wide receiver 4, 5, and everyone says they're going to take wide receiver, but they pick at 11, and they've brought in guys like Kyle Hamilton for visits. There's no lock that they take a wide receiver there. They could easily take Kyle Hamilton. They traded their 2nd-round pick to the Colts. They have a later 2nd-round pick at 47. If they don't take a wide receiver there, they don't pick again until the 4th. So they have 2 picks to take an impact wide receiver, and they have a lot of holes they need to fill. They just lost Brandon Scherf. They got a lot of positions they got to fill. So if they don't take a wide receiver with those 2 picks, Curtis Samuel is a guy that should shoot up these boards. He had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in his last full season with Carolina, which included 40 carries for 200 yards rushing. And who was the coach of that Carolina team? The same Ron Rivera that is coaching him now in Washington. Curtis Samuel is a guy where you can put your chips on him now in Dynasty or in best ball drafts. And if they don't take a wide receiver with the first 2 rounds, we'll know it within the first 2 days. You're a winner. You've won. I mean, if they don't take a wide receiver at 11, you've kind of already won because we've seen plenty of 2nd-round wide receivers bust. They could take Miles Boykin or J.J. Arcega-Whiteside for all we know. You know, I mean, they've been pretty bad at drafting wide receivers as is with Antonio Gandy-Golden and Kelvin Harmon. I mean, why would he get vaporized even by a good rookie? Sometimes they don't break out right away. So I'm putting some money on Curtis Samuel. I enjoy watching the draft that way. It just makes it more fun, right? And then here is an obvious one, but people aren't taking advantage of it. The Packers, right? Alan Lazard was the de facto number 2 wide receiver on that team when he was healthy in 2020. On a per game basis, he had the second most targets after Davante Adams. And now Davante Adams is gone, Marquez Valdes-Scantling are gone. Why can't this guy lead the team in targets? And even if they draft a high-end wide receiver, why can't he be top 2? He's going off the board at wide receiver 87. It literally costs you nothing. If you take him in a underdog draft and they draft 3 wide receivers in this draft, who cares? It's just one best ball league, you know? You can do 100 more like I'm going to do in this offseason. So it's just something fun you can do to make the draft a little more fun. And I know John and Pemba wants me to keep these videos to 5 minutes, but Pemba's just going to have to eat it because I need to talk about at least one tight end. I'm a tight end guy. Howard Bender's a tight end guy. We got to get a tight end in here. Cole Kmet, right? The Bears only have Darnell Mooney. They brought in Byron Pringle. He's essentially a split guard. He's like Willie Snead. Great blocker, great special teams guy. He's not getting 100 targets, okay? So Darnell Mooney is a guy at threat for 100. After him, Cole Kmet's the next best guy. And he played half his snaps in the slot, 498 in line, 415 in the slot. Why can't this guy get a bunch of targets, be the second target on that team? Why do they have to take a wide receiver? And even if they do take a wide receiver, like I just said, sometimes those guys don't ascend right away. It could be Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet for the first year, and then maybe next year the rookie takes over or whatever. But that's a bet that I'm willing to take at his ADP. So hop in there in your dynasty leagues, get in some of these underdogs. Maybe I'll even do an underdog with people on Twitter. Follow me at Coupe Fiasco. We'll do this together. And, you know, you make a few of these, make some bets, join us on the live stream. We'll be having a laugh, having a couple beers. It's going to be a good time. So let's get ready for this draft. See you guys next Thursday, 7 p.m. at LR Fantasy on Twitter. Cheers, guys.